Eileen,
Hi.
welcome to the Chinsandi Show. I know before starting, we had an interesting conversation here, but hey, what's up? How are you doing today?
Well, thank you for having me today. It's like pretty, I think like I got into Hong Kong 2 days ago and I was very surprised how cold it is. And the weather has been so gloomy as well, just like the market.
Yes.
I mean, this is perfect for consensus this year.
But, the weather's going to get warmer as the week goes. So hopefully the market follows the weather here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
But Eileen, you definitely have a very interesting background, and we're going to dig deep into it. But first, I'm just curious, how's a day in the life of a CMO at an AI company looks like, right? Because right now we see a lot of AI companies popping up, and I was just curious, what's the day in the life look like for a CMO of an AI company?
So actually, I think thank you for asking me that question. I've been actually recalibrating myself as well, as the job goes and the role expands. But I think it has been a very, very interesting new challenge for myself because so as Supernet, we are building a portable AI context layer 1 as a blockchain. So as building a layer 1 blockchain, your main target audience is basically all the builders and developers and, ecosystems. So basically that's kind of curating a very tailor-made kind of marketing message. And also we're trying to build a cult, right? That's what crypto is all about. But as part of that as well, cause, we have been receiving these kind of challenge all the time. There's so many layer ones, right? So many ecosystems, not enough builders. Why do you guys still build another layer 1? So I think we are also as we build, we need to find new ways for go to market. So as part of our first step into the market, we have also actually built a Web2 traditional AI product. It's called Supernet. And it's right now, we're starting with a browser plugin, but in the future, it will be a whole entire app family. But that main target audience is actually at the Web2 AI power users. So with Supernet, it will help you to actually curate all of your key personal AI memory context into one, stored solution. So then it will support you to actually use across different AI tools. So then it solves the problem of keep repeating yourself whenever you switch into another new AI tool.
Yeah.
So basically, we're building not just a Web3, builders focused product, but I'm also focusing on actually researching how do we target at the Web2 AI powered users? What are the new channels? And, the market is changing so fast. We're already seeing a huge viral moment last weekend with cloud bots. All the agents.
That was crazy. Everyone buying a MacBook Mini, Mac Minis, right? Do you have one?
No. Well, I'm thinking about actually building more on the cloud instead of actually hosting it in-house. But a lot of that is just basically you're having everybody talking about it within 24 hours and you're feeling very FOMO. And then you go into it and they're wait, okay, no one's using it already?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Maybe I'm not technical. Maybe my audience is not as technical. Why are people buying those Mac Minis to run the cloud bots and stuff like that? How does that work?
So based on my study and research as well, because I'm also learning on the go, is to host all of your key information and also your private data, mainly in a controlled environment. So that's why people are actually separating their computer, personal laptop, with a Mac Mini, for instance. So it's a completely new, clear environment for you to run cloud bots in the open source kind of, operating.
It stores your data. That
Exactly.
Mac Mini stores your data.
Yes.
Kind of.
So basically, it won't have the interference into your personal data. Because I did see some cases, right? I think a cloud bot was deleting manually the user's system
Really?
and
Wow.
deleting their private database and completely erased everything. So I think right now the reason why for people to actually hosting that in a more separate environment is just still we're experimenting, want to experience the whole new tech, but at the same time not really sabotaging what you already have. Yeah.
It's crazy how this AI changed so fast, even this year, right? I think from a mainstream audience, they just got used to using ChatGPT. My mom just discovered ChatGPT, and she's like, "This is the greatest thing ever. I was like, oh, that's actually low tech now. There's something called Claude.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, no, I'm going to ChatGPT. And it's just crazy. Like Claude, I heard on crypto Twitter, right?
Mm.
And then I saw an ad for it during the NFL playoffs this year. I was like, okay, I have to get serious about this because, yeah. But I guess, how did Claude get even popular? Like, I just heard it from crypto Twitter and then see ads about it during, a football game. Like, yeah, how did we go from ChatGPT to Claude so fast?
Because I think like Claude definitely the LM was like more came to popularity because of the builders community, because of like Claude code, and like all the cursors that actually run like based on the like Claude LM, and so like actually like the builders community and devs, they're the frontier of actually utilizing innovation and also like cutting edge technology. So they're the one who's like sharing the cool stuff that they've been building. So I think like that's actually like bringing like Anthropic into the public like eyes.
Yeah.
But like me personally, actually like as part of my job, I have to test out all of the AI tools every single day, trying to chase on the wave. I do feel like actually personally, like, I don't know how much you talk to your AI, but as part of my guilty pleasure, I talk to my AI every single day. Like,
what do you ask it?
Mostly my personal relationship things.
Wait, how's that advice? Like, how does it?
Surprisingly, it has been very, very helpful. Very, very helpful.
Okay.
Like, it
Have
actually
you applied that advice in your personal relationships?
Yeah. Like every single time, I think like I utilize, especially ChatGPT now, to be my personal kind of like an objective coach. Like I would feed a lot of like the things, how I feel about the day, how I feel about, certain perspective. And then I'll ask ChatGPT to give me like 100% objective point of view and just give me like constructive feedback. So I'm like really treating it as, like you're nothing but a machine. Like tell me everything that like without any human feelings. So then it helps me to actually like oversee things like without any emotions, but like more objectively, going through the perspectives. But then I also like recently started cheating on my ChatGPT with Gemini.
How's that been?
So it was really funny, like how normal, I don't know, like normal AI power users can be actually like convinced by something really, really minor and very small. It's just like basically my friend told me like, hey, you know what? Gemini can do a really good fortune telling. And I was like, really? Okay. Now I need to like have Gemini to fortune tell, like, what's going to happen.
So you asked Gemini about your future.
And also the past without any context.
Okay.
And apparently, I suggest you could try that today.
So what did Gemini say?
So like Gemini actually like pretty much put together some key informations quite accurately. And it was like quite, shockingly surprised by that. But I think like it's all been very, very interesting. But still, like I do feel like there has been a gap, especially when you're trying to like switch to different like LLMs with more professional context, right? So anything you want to talk about, like within, like say, okay, well, give me more of a strategic analysis on Supernet, then I need to like go back and actually feed all the information about Supernet again and then again with my AI, like new AI tool. So I do think like, I'm very excited to launch SuperMem as our first go-to-market product so that every single one of, especially me, myself, I can actually benefit from that.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of terms that maybe my audience is not as familiar with. You mentioned LLM, right? How do you describe that to someone maybe that doesn't really understand AI and stuff like that? Like,
so LM firstly like stand for large language model. If you think about it, it's like basically like a massive brain where AI learn all the knowledge, all the things that the AI should be knowing and processing is all the data. So I would actually like describe that and explain that if I have to, like with my mom. I'd be like, well, LM is like basically the brain of the AI. Yeah.
Does your mom use like AI, ChatGPT?
Oh my God. My mom is actually the expert of ChatGPT.
Oh, wow.
She was like, you know what? I talked to AI today. I don't even need to talk to you anymore because you're so busy. It's like really passive aggressive. And I do feel like I've been thinking about like, okay, well, if I could actually train a digital AI avatar of myself
Uh-huh.
and then store it and just basically giving it to her.
Yeah.
And so she'll be
That's
like actually
crazy.
talking
To you.
to my avatar as if she's talking to me because, like my avatar technically could speak exactly the same like me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like some like Star Wars stuff, man.
100%. It's like we're living in the like, in the future in a sci-fi movie.
Yeah. Do you think that is I'm trying to get a little philosophical, but I'm just curious, right? We hear, I mean, it's really cool when it comes to productivity with AI, what you guys are building at Supernet. But also there's like this, you could say like moral standpoint or thinking about like, do you think it's getting a point or do you think AI is ever getting a point where it's like, we lose that human to human relationship? Like you mentioned, like you asked for relationship advice and I'm not shaming you or anything because that's pretty cool. Like that's something, probably get better advice from AI than sometimes your friends.
100%. Oh my God. Like, thinking about the amount of time that you've been hearing your friends like complaining about their partner and now they can complain to AI, like that can increase your like friendship, right? Like quality.
But on the other side, right? Do you feel like it may be getting to a point where it's too much, where like people are losing that human connection? Because I was talking to a professor, who teaches like Gen Z Alpha, and she's like saying these kids can't like talk to people like and stuff. But yeah, I was just curious as a person that's building an AI, like how do you feel? What do you feel about that?
So, like interesting that you actually mentioned that. So lately, like we have been in close relationship with both the Stanford Human AI like Center Labs and also like actually Harvard as well, because my other two co-founders, they actually come from Stanford and also MIT. So we are like really much in the like front end of how do we build human-centered AI utilizing like blockchain. For instance, like one of the things, well, I'll come back to the companionship side of things for later, but I do feel like as part of the mission that we're building, we're on, is like really much excites me is actually the data ownership. Because, like if you really think about it, moving forward, what defines us as a human, right? Like as a creative mind is actually our AI data, is our memory, is our context, that's the preferences, your behaviors and things that you know about this world. That defines you as a unique person. And that actually like right now exists in the tech silo. Like LMs, like they own these kind of like context data, not us. And so that's why, we're building Supernet to support that ownership back to the users, where you can really utilize blockchain as a space to really like actually have that ownership and control. So I think like going back to that, I guess one of my key concern as well, like if I don't have any kids right now, but like my kids gonna grow up in a post-AI era. And I do worry about like how are they going to develop their communications, because when we grew up, like we had nothing, we didn't even have social media, right?
I just had Game Boy.
Yeah, me too.
And which was great. The Game Boy back in those days.
It's like so fun, and even without like video games, you playing like physical games with your friend, right? So I do feel like, well, it's definitely inevitable that especially the kids nowadays, they have to learn about AI because that's how they have to like keep up in the trend, but then at the same time learn to live with AI. I think like that is one of the most like challenging thing. I think like as a overall like us living in the like post AI era. But like funny thing, I was listening to this podcast today. I think like Elon Musk did a new podcast. And he was just like saying like in 5 years, there will be more AI living in the space than human.
In space.
Space, yeah. So all of the AI will be actually sent to the space. So I think like we're definitely living in a very like fast moving, crazy world where we need to find how do we find our peace living with AI. Like for me personally, I'm still like very pro AI and like pro human with AI, because I do think like AI definitely increased like so much more productivity for me. And I do feel like, it's definitely also helping people who are having issues with real human interactions or not feeling comfortable, like talking to real people. And with AI just being there constantly and, like so patiently all the time, it's also like definitely helping people with, maybe like depression issues. That's like what I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting what you said about that, because maybe sometimes people are a little more afraid or to go get help, right? Or because you have to like book a doctor, go to a therapist. But now, like you said, like AI, people can literally be on their phones in their bed and they're feeling whatever certain way, you can ask it, and maybe the AI has professional data from doctors and stuff like that can help, which I didn't even think about. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, and also like that the most funny comment I actually like heard most recently was my friend saying, I don't feel like using ChatGPT anymore. I was like, what? Why? And then he was like, I think like ChatGPT is too much of like a ass kisser. Like always like telling me like, you're right, you're absolutely right, you're amazing. I'm like, why don't you want that?
That's true. AI is more like for you, right? It never
Yeah.
says anything bad about you, does it? Or
Well, you can actually like prompt it to actually
you
be
can.
the harsh coach and just like giving you the advice that you're like your picky mother or your like
Your Asian mother.
yeah, your mean boss, like like really pushing for self growth.
Yeah.
But for me, I would be feeling like, well, this world is already harsh enough, like pushing us like hard enough. Why would you still want your AI to push you? Like you should have the AI to pamper you. I don't know. Like that's just like my personal preference.
Yeah, some
And
people
GPT
like
does a really good job.
yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. But also, I'm curious, like doing research for this podcast, kind of knowing your background a little bit. So you're working at Disney, right?
Yeah.
What were you doing at Disney?
Wow, that was like that almost feel like, decades ago. But actually I joined Disney back in 2015. So I'm actually an art student. I studied film in London. I'm very very into like filmmaking, very into like storytelling. I'm definitely like, obsessed with content since a young age. And then after, like graduating, so I got recruited by Disney in Singapore because they're setting up an APAC office for a new team that they just acquired at the time, which is actually the world's first MCN. I'm not sure if you remember that.
What's MCN?
So multi-channel network is like the first KOL agency ever.
Oh,
yeah, but it's founded by 5 YouTubers. Started in 2009.
Which 5 YouTubers?
Oh my god, I can't remember their names. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, it's fine.
I need some fish oil. But it was like so. It was because they started gathering a lot of views, viewership, and also like followers since like 2009. And then they felt like, wow, okay, well, hang on, we can definitely monetize our content. We can monetize our traffic. So then they started building their company, as a group, and then started, basically pitching to brands and helping them making the first generation of YouTube videos, sponsored by brands. And then they grew really fast within their own like network. They started like signing or, getting more and more of the KOLs like joining their network. And then it became Maker Studio, which is, like a YouTuber's like connections. And Disney acquired Maker Studio back in 2014. And basically, I joined the team in 2015 as the second hire in APAC to really building a whole entire like digital network as a ground setup in APAC. So it was a really fun job because like at the time YouTube is kind of like relatively well developed, but then at the same time like Facebook is booming with all the
yes, kids, Facebook was a thing.
Facebook was a thing, kids. Not just the boomers.
That was where the cool kids used to be at.
Yeah, and then Instagram. So people started to like, okay, really thinking about like, how do I build my personal IP and my personal brand so I can work with all the different like brands. And, especially like within Disney, we have like so many other brands as well, like Marvel and Pixar. There's always a campaign coming up, like launching new movies and new initiatives. So then these networks actually became our share of voice. And we would really, tailor make content with each one of the YouTubers with the best like fit for that specific type of like, content for our campaign. So that was like really, really a fun age until PewDiePie actually crashed. So PewDiePie did something, if we all remember, the old internet days.
Yeah.
And then he got fired the second day after he like basically
He was in Disney?
up. Yeah, he got fired by the Disney network.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as one of the biggest like YouTubers in the world with like so many followers, you should be a little bit more concerned about like what you represent, to people who actually like, look up to you. So after that, then like Disney obviously became like a bit more cautious. It's like, wow, okay, we need to control these millennials. We need to like tailor make and actually be more brand safe. So then there was like a new changing of regulations internally, like, oh, we need to make more family oriented content. So then, like we started making more safer type of like content to promote the brand, which I 100% still think like it's like very, very relevant. But then for me personally, I would feel like, well, I want to make something more fun and more, poking.
Yeah.
So that's when I actually like moved to Netflix after.
Oh, okay. And what were you doing at Netflix?
So at Netflix, I was working on the Korean and Chinese original content. So basically,
like K-pop Demon Hunters?
Well, that was actually like my original team. So I started even before like we had a satellite office in Korea. I worked on the first Korean show, Kingdom. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
good. I see my fans. All right.
So I always joke around with people. I don't have a Netflix subscription. Reason why
Okay.
is I have crypto Twitter.
Okay.
That's enough entertainment for me.
Okay. Yes. That's a very fair point. Yeah.
But no, that's crazy. So, no, it's interesting because your positions at Disney and Netflix is from the Asia side of things, right? Like my audience is pretty much everywhere, and I'm really curious about that because I remember going to Disneyland here in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I think when it first opened, like 08 or 07. And I remember going to a ride or watching a show. And then we got Mickey Mouse there, right?
Yeah.
But Mickey Mouse was speaking in Chinese, in Cantonese.
In Cantonese, yeah.
I was like, what is going on here? But I was like, as I think about, okay, the localization of things, how is it different from like, you would say like Netflix, Disney, this entertainment industry from like, from maybe from the West and stuff that people are probably more used to and stuff like that.
I think like definitely even though that we are working in the APAC office, the whole overall like company culture and corporate culture is still very, very American. And I do coordinate with a lot of my US like teams. Like even when I was at Netflix, so actually I report back to LA. So we are working with the global talents, but we have come in with more localized, like expertise on the local markets. What would actually work to localize these like global type of like content. So I think like to your point, I think like Disney did a really, really, really good job, especially on the Disneyland front. Me personally, I love Shanghai Disneyland. I think like Shanghai Disneyland is the best, and they do localize like Zootopia so well. That's why like Zootopia 2, they hit the highest box office like outside of the US. Actually, like globally, like China has the highest box office. So
Really?
I think like yeah. So I think like Disney has been like super smart, not giving up trying, especially in the APAC markets. So outside of like mainland China, like Philippines is also huge on Disney IPs, and including like Indonesia as well. So like these IP companies, they also like generate more revenue based on the merch. So it's not really about selling the content because like people like you probably won't buy the subscription.
Because I got crypto Twitter,
But if your girlfriend says, well, hey, I really want to have a Mickey Mouse like merch, you buy it for her. And even though that like the making of it is like actually like 1/10 of the whole entire like selling price. So that's like actually the value of creating IP, like global IP, and also like it's the value of actually knowing what to sell for specific markets as well. So Netflix has been like really, really smart. So when I first started, we were trying to betting, like running the horse and trying to see which one has like more global appeal, right? Like Chinese content, because obviously it's more global Chinese people living, across the world, and then or the Korean content. So I was working on the first shows of both languages.
Huh.
And guess what? Korea won, and Korean content has now, Netflix doubled down and tripled down actually on the investment. And then later on, like the same team that worked at Netflix, they made Squid Game. That was like the first ever like global like really sentiment over K content. And then recently like the K-pop hunters. So I think like really knowing about the local markets and how that local content can influence like global audience, and based on data analysis, that's like I think Netflix really, really, really good at.
Yeah, you mentioned how like you were in the beginning in APEC of like I guess testing Chinese content versus Korean content. Why is it that you feel like Korean content really resonate globally with people versus, I mean, Chinese, there's still a lot of people follow Chinese shows, Chinese movies, but like why is like the K-pop, the K-drama is such a big thing globally, you think?
Wow, like that's actually a very interesting topic. Like that alone is like a separate like episode on the podcast.
We'll
but
go
like,
back. I'm tying it back to AI, but I'm just really curious.
But like TLDR, there has been, especially when I was working at Netflix, that was back in 2018 all the way till 2020. And that, if you remember, that was actually the political issue with mainland China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. There was like a lot of like, kind of, underground beef.
Yeah.
Yeah. So content itself, like it's so related to like, narrative and storytelling and PR and, so there's not really too much of like per se, well, create whatever and then we'll air whatever kind of like situation. So at the time, we weren't able to actually produce things that's like a little bit more provocative, which like actually happened on a lot of the first original shows on Netflix. Is like mainly provocative, right? Like sex education, or even you see like Stranger Things. So these are the things that's very outside of the box. But Korea has developed a long history of actually promoting their own culture, especially globally. I grew up watching K content, and basically with all the girl bands, right, like Blackpink, BTS, and then like combining with a more global approach to the content itself. Like for instance, like I have been selling Kingdom to my other counterparts for the global markets. Is basically this is a Korean costumed Walking Dead series. Would you buy it? Like they'll be like, oh my God, that sounds sick, right? But then we couldn't really create something like, Chinese, costume drama, because we all know that costume drama is a very globally popular type of content. But then you have Tencent, you have iQIYI, like they probably like produce higher quality of these kind of content compared to Netflix. You can just basically like feed your audience with the simple acquisition to air globally. You don't really need to have a whole entire original content team working on a Netflix produced show to compete with, like Chinese filmmakers. So there was like a lot of like actually like hidden policies, and also like the whole entire like economy situations and dynamics and everything. So yeah.
No, it's
like
really
that's
interesting. Yeah, from the inside, right? From you working at Netflix in the APEC region, Disney. So then, okay, so after Netflix, how do you go from like IP, film, entertainment to like AI? Like how did that?
Yeah. So actually, like many people, I'm sure in this industry, right? Like I first heard about Bitcoin back in 2012. It was shared by my friend Dom. I hope that you are very rich right now. But
Shout out to Dom.
Dom was like telling me, "Yo, Aileen, you need to buy Bitcoin." I was like, "Huh? What
was the
is
price
that?"
of Bitcoin at that
At
time?
the time, it was like £50. I was in London.
£50.
Yeah, 50
It's like 100.
pounds. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like back in 2012, right? And I was like, £50. That's like 10 pints of beer. Do I want to buy something like that? I don't know. I don't know enough, right? And then fast forward to 2018, that was like the second, like the boom, like really big boom. Vitalik was actually based in Singapore, the whole entire Ethereum team, and Binance just started. And again, like my friends was like, "Yo, Aileen, you want to get into like crypto?" And then I read upon the white papers, and then obviously I do understand like Bitcoin a bit more, right? Like understanding like the whole entire the value of it, Ethereum as well. But then all the other tokens and other projects is all based on thin air. And it's the first boom of ICO as well. And my friends was like, well, you can help all the projects to like do their marketing and PR. I'm like, you're basically asking me to go scam people because there's no actual product. You know what I mean?
And at that time, you were working at Netflix.
At that time was at Disney.
At Disney, okay.
And then I was like, I don't know about this. And I was already contemplating whether I should do an MBA. Remember those days where people are still, MBA was still a thing?
Yeah.
You do it in your quarter life like crisis.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe not. And then Netflix came knocking my door. I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to my dream company as every filmmaker, right? And then, but I still like kept my whole entire, outlook for what's happening in the crypto space. Fast forward to 2021, that was like the boom market of NFT, metaverse. And by the way, one of my favorite film is Ready Player One.
Of course.
So I was like, oh my God, are you telling me we actually can have an opportunity to live in a metaverse like that? And I was like, wow, like I'm fascinated. And very lucky, like one of my biggest mentor in the space. And she convinced me, she's like, well, why don't you try something? Like this is like actually like NFT, like storytelling, GameFi is something that you're excited about as well, right? Like it also like curates like IP, curates more of a storytelling. You should definitely like get into it. So that's how I actually got into crypto end of 2021.
Oh, wow.
And actually, I created like virtual idols. At the time, that was like before AI came around, right?
Interesting, yeah.
So virtual idols with anime characters. And then basically I created 4 like humanized token waifu.
Were they NFTs or?
Well, it's actually I started with just animated character as a virtual idol, so they can like talk to you, and then it's like all through like 2D live, right? And then one of the characters happened to be BNB. So obviously I created like BTC. Bitcoin is that your sassy, like elder sister. And then Ethereum is the more of a nerdy scientist type.
The Vitalik
And then like
side, yeah.
BNB is like, hey, like I'm the girl next door. I'm here to help you. And then I created Doge as well. Like she's the cute, like naughty girl type of, girlfriend that you probably want. So it's kind of like the dream type of every single man. And then I launched that, the characters, and also I built some short content series.
This is while you were at Netflix.
No, that was already like out of Netflix.
So you left Netflix to build that waifu.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So early 2022, I launched on TikTok.
Okay.
And then within 3 months, we actually gained over like 800,000 followers.
Wow.
Which is actually like out of my expectation as well. And then Luma happened. So actually I was trying to build a whole entire metaverse, right? Like it could be like a metaverse, like dating app where you have the virtual idols as well. And then you have the NFT with the whole entire like IPs. And because they're influencers, they can also like, launch help other NFT, like Adidas at the time was like so hot. Everybody was so hot on NFT, like NFT is the word, buzzword.
I was talking to a friend actually here in the studio. He's a crypto punk, and we're talking about back in those days, NFTs were like the thing in 21. That's actually how I got into it through NBA Top Shot.
Oh yeah.
Right, and I was collecting it, and then I hear about these apes, and I was like, why would anyone spend thousands of dollars on a picture of an ape? Right, and at that time, I had money. I should have bought an ape, and then all the celebrities were talking about it. Disney did something too, right,
Yes.
about it, and yes, I remember the Adidas one. I don't know if you remember the Pepsi one. I don't know why I always crap on the Pepsi one, but it was a mic. I was like, how does a mic have to do with a soft drink?
Good point. Like it was the crazy days.
Yeah.
Where like everyone was like overly excited about JPEGs, right?
Crazy.
But my whole entire, I have a whole entire like business plan, and then Luna happened, and that was like right before I started like start talking to some investors.
Oh man.
And then, but lucky my friend actually introduced me to E. So co-founder of Binance. And now congratulations, like the co-CEO.
The He.
He.
Oh, yeah.
So E was actually also overseeing Easy Lab, Binance Labs at the time. And then she actually really liked the character I created. And she does really like the idea of actually building virtual idols and to represent and making more human touch and humanized like content to, in a way, share and promote crypto tokens to the mass majority, right? Like back then, we're still like really massively talking about mass adoption. So after I actually had a chat with her, and she was like, look, market's bad. I do like you. Why don't you work for me instead? So then she gave me a few options to work at Binance. And then out of all the options, I actually picked one of the hardest, actually most challenging, which is setting up a new content studio for Binance. It's called Binance Studio. No longer exists because I left, and also because the whole entire, it was not a perfect kind of attempt.
Yeah.
But at the time, we wanted to create more mainstream content to promote crypto, right? It's more about hey, remember this. It was in 2022. So that was before Trump. It was before the whole entire institutions that got into this. It was still a little bit of a minor crazy crowd. People are crazy about some virtual tokens called Bitcoin,
was this before
some JPEGs.
FTX or after?
That was before FTX. I'm gonna get to that.
Oh, okay. We're getting there. But okay, wait, take a step back real quick before we talk about Binance stuff. So how was that like from working at Netflix, working your dream job, to someone your mentor convincing you to learn about this not AI, crypto stuff? How did you make that leap from working your dream job to honestly being an entrepreneur, right? Starting your own thing. Was that difficult or yeah?
Well, it was definitely, so there were a few reasons. I wouldn't say it was it's definitely push and pull factor, right? The push factor mainly coming from, as I just previously mentioned, Netflix doubling down on the Korean content. And me personally, I am Chinese. So obviously one of the main reason I wanted to join Netflix for that role in the beginning is to actually promote of my own culture. Original Chinese content.
Mm-hmm.
But then after I realized, well, it's going to be a very hard thing. And it's not even about the creatives. It's not even about the people behind each content. It's more than that. It's more of the things that you cannot really control of. So then that's when I started thinking, this might be a little bit of a bottleneck for me. Either I go back and just, be, I wouldn't call it boring regular marketer, but it's more kind of you don't really have an initiative on the things that you truly feel for, right? Building IP has always been my thing. I love making stuff. I like building IPs. I like, basically leading storytelling. So storytelling has always been something that I feel truly passionate about. And then the pull factor definitely coming from like the booming market of like what's happening in crypto beyond just being a finance product, which now, like we're going back to the fintech start stuff. But at the time when I first got attracted to like crypto, it's like definitely more exciting things where people are crazy about what a cultural kind of like narrative, IPs and good arts and bringing in a good collectors, right? And beyond that, you're not just collectors. There's also financial like upside about it. And there's like really hip communities like Azuki, for instance. I own an Azuki. I love that community, but obviously, second series, like, all those like different stories, like is all in the history. But I do feel like, well, there's like something really exciting here. And it's like so related to how people would consume content in the future as well. So I think like I'm always being very like drawn to new technology, to innovation, and how that new technology can embrace the things that I truly passionate about, which is like still back to storytelling. So that's like how I got into crypto. Even when I chose the new journey and new challenge about building the content studio for Binance, is basically like we wanted to work with like mainstream, media tycoons like BBC, right, Vice Media, all of these. And actually, I was like really pushing very hard to collaborate with them on producing documentary series on crypto. And inevitably, you would mention Binance because Binance has been such a big part of the crypto up and down since 2017. So there were a few deals very close to the end, and then FTX happened. So, like everything rose into...
Yeah, how was that like working in crypto during that time?
I was like, oh my God. Like that's the first time I started... Because think about it, like after I joined one new industry, completely outside of my comfort zone, and I have already like ran into like everybody been telling me the Black Swan incident, which is like Luna, and then FTX. I was like, huh? You're telling me like this is normal for an industry? You have like the second largest like competitor like collapse overnight. It's just
they were
like,
based here too, in Hong Kong.
I was based in Singapore.
Oh.
I was like witnessed that. Like I would feel like relatively in the front row. And I was like, oh my God, this is what it takes to be in this industry. I'm in. It's so exciting. It's so dramatic. So much story to tell. And then like after FTX and, like things became like much harder, especially for my department to trying to, like land on deals with more media partners and all that. But I'd still like put something through which connected back to why I joined crypto in the first place. So I filmed the first ever reality show in the metaverse. So it's a collaboration with Binance Labs, and it was for an incubation program.
Okay.
So my inspiration was like both coming from, Shark Tank and versus like plus like the demo day normally happens at the end of an incubation program. So then we created this whole entire like show format, and it all happened in the metaverse. And I invited over, I think like 80 guests to be live in our studio. In the same time and through our avatars and in the studio. But after the whole entire, experiment, I realized, oh, wait, we cannot live in the metaverse yet because cloud rendering like speed is too slow.
That's one of the reasons why, right? Because you have to use the cloud to... I mean, speaking of metaverse, right? Speaking of 21, 22, when we talked about Facebook early on, right? Instagram, they literally changed the whole company name to Meta, try to be synonymous to metaverse, even though obviously there's different metaverses, but that was crazy too, right? The metaverse during that time. I mean, Meta's still called Meta.
Yeah.
Although, as of recorded, they kind of cut some of the metaverse people, but no, that's crazy. Wait, so okay, reality TV show on metaverse.
Yep.
And you found out that we're not going to live in the metaverse because of cloud computing and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that how you pivot to AI, or what happened after that?
So after that, obviously, like there's also a lot of like changes within Binance, CZ stepping down and all that, and then like big shuffle in the inside of the company, and obviously it has been very very difficult for me to push initiative around content angles. And actually, like to be honest, like the reason why I joined crypto in the first place is to be an entrepreneur myself. Like I've always really enjoyed building things from scratch. Like I really enjoyed like the 0 to 1 steps. And actually, like throughout my whole entire career path, I've always been in the frontier of actually building something from scratch, even though with a bigger, like brand backing. So I thought like, hey, I'm gonna do this on my own. So like I left Binance and then I got a good angel investment, and I started building my previous startup, which is before Supernet. So I built a project called Nara. NARA, so it's like basically short for narrative. And it's actually like an extension of my idea for the virtual idols, but we also build like animated characters, but they're all AI agents. So they're agents, companions. It's like your AI Tamagotchi. And you need to like keep talking to them every day, and then you build intimacy points with your characters, and then basically like that's how the game will level up, right? And that was like back in 2024. We were definitely like the hot kid around the block, right? We were shopping around different ecosystem. We're talking to Monad and like Mega ETH and like Arbitrum, all of these like ecosystems. And then in the end, we went with Berachain. And actually last year, like I was
You're the
actually
second project that I talked to on, well, I don't know if you guys are still Berachain, but on Berachain, yeah.
Yeah. So I like it was just only a year ago. Like, bro, last year this time they launched mainnet, right? And we actually got like pretty good, solid like support from the ecosystem. We got the 3rd largest airdrop as an ecosystem project.
Wow.
And we held the token.
Yeah.
Never sold. First time builders,
Berachain was, I forgot who I talked to this. Oh yeah, that one founder that was on Berachain too. About that. Raffle, yes.
I saw your
shout out to
list.
Raffle and Puff Paw. But that event.
Oh, by the way, Raffle, I still haven't received my Puff Paw yet.
Okay, Raffle, if you're listening. No, but that event in Singapore was insane, right? And yeah, that was crazy.
It was definitely like a lot of like crazy years, like back in 24 as well. Hey, I would say like a year in crypto is definitely 10 years in normal life. Things happen so much. And so just within last year, and then, narrative like pivots so fast. Quickly like because we waited for Berachain mainnet launch, and then we missed kind of like the hot wave with virtuals, and all the base like agent tokens and meme tokens. Actually, looking back, I'm actually quite glad that we didn't really launch a token, just because like things we need to launch a token. So Nara is still running right now. We are just kind of like pivoting to like probably coming to Supernet as part of the ecosystem project, because over the past 6 months, so we launched our product in August last year. And we still have like over 2,000 daily active users. I know it's not really a lot, but actually, if you know about crypto market, that's like pretty good.
If they're
number.
real, that's a big thing.
Yeah, it's actually like real numbers, because we're gated by our NFT collections.
Okay.
And we have already like collected over 8 million engagements in terms of like chatting histories. And well, definitely out of that, there's like probably nonsense that users also talk about with their AI. But I would say like a good 10% of that engagement is actually solid context. So that would be something that we want to keep exploring from the AI perspective, coming to like Supernet as a whole entire ecosystem as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. No, it's really cool to just hear kind of like your journey path, right? Following your passion of film, right? Going to school for that, working in the biggest companies in the industry, right? Like Disney, Netflix, and then pivoting to doing something you're more passionate about, right? Creating with new tech and stuff like that. And it seems like, at least from this hour of conversation, like you're always a go-getter. You know, you're like doing this, doing that, meeting with this person, that person. But I feel like a lot of people in the world sometimes are not as, like they have an idea and they really have a passion, but like they're just afraid to step in, afraid to quit that job, afraid to fail, afraid to do that. I was just curious, from your experience, right? And maybe, do you have any advice for people that are like, just, man, I see Aileen is like, yo, like I want to do this, I want to do that. Or maybe they're in uni right now, right? Studying film, right? It's like, oh, I want to get a job at Disney and blah. Well, what advice would you have for someone like that?
I think we all live just once, and every single day counts. And basically just go and live the most out of every single day, like it's your last day. And I know when I knew it was a good moment for me to, leave Binance. I really appreciate E for giving me that opportunity, and providing me the best mentorship I could have. But at the same time, I also like told her like, hey, like this has been my dream goal. I could go back to work for anyone in the future because I am confident about like who I am as a person. I know what I'm capable of, but probably you only have one time, one shot in your life where you feel like that's the best moment. If I don't do it now, I'll never get to do it. Then that's the moment that you need to seize and actually act on it. So I took my shot. It has been a really tough journey, like I have to say. Actually, like I've been very outside of my comfort zone, learning everything about like crypto, which is actually finance industry, right? And like the whole entire market pivot from like just a pure narrative, like excitement over like GameFi and, like more IP driven. Even like when we launched our NFT collection back in Nara, and everyone was like, well, bro, if you launched in 2021, 22, you would have made it because we have really high quality art. But then people don't really care about it anymore. It's all about the floor price. It's all about your NFT utility within your game or within your product. When are you launching a token? I've seen so many of my friends actually also like really suffering from the market because after they launch a token and they became, like a used toy. You're not shiny and cool and attractive anymore. And the moment that you don't really maintain your price, and that's like where you're gonna have everybody, like your community, who once like really like look up to you and then just like turn their back on you. So like that's a lot of things where I'm definitely seeing a lot of like true humanity in this industry. And learning new things like what's happening in AI as well. So like for me, like I'm just definitely, I sometimes like joke with my friends, I'm very self-abusive, right? Like I could have lived a much easier life, a much more chilled life, but I do want to challenge myself more and actually push myself to more limits to see like where can I go? Where can I be, right? Because like I only live once and I don't want to be like, before I pass away and I have the 60 seconds of flashback of a life and then regretting for not really grabbing every single opportunity that I could have like, actually like went if I was more brave.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And one thing, I did 3 podcasts yesterday, right? And I asked that question. I mean, everyone had a different or unique answer, but the theme was very similar to what you're saying, right? You only live once. And also, like, you just go and do it. And that's where I feel like in crypto, especially, I meet so many people like that, right? And that's really inspiring even for me as I'm, building this podcast, building out things. Is like you said, you only live once, right? I know I'm aging myself, but the term YOLO, right, used to be a thing, right?
Yes.
It used to be cool. YOLO now.
YOLO still is cool.
It's cool. Apparently, no one says fam. No one says YOLO anymore.
Well, now it's all 6-7.
Yeah, 6-7. That's the cool thing. That's hilarious. But no, as we're closing out this podcast, first of all, it's been really amazing to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, just to hear your story and stuff and learning about AI. But now, you're working for Supernet, right? And you guys are really pushing aggressively, especially the next 2 weeks. You're going to be here in Hong Kong. You can have an event tonight as recorded, and also next week at ETH Denver. But yeah, what can people look forward to? What you guys are building, and how can people check you guys out? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like, follow us on Twitter at supernet.ai, like, underscore AI. And we're also like launching our go-to-market products, Supermem, very soon. So right now, like, it's still like in the phase of internal testing period. But we're expecting to actually launch that product within March. And we are also like hosting 3 big events in East Denver. One is going to be an open house access of like Super House. It's like a more of a builders event in East Denver. And we're also going to be collaborating with Stanford Blockchain Accelerator with their hackathon as well. And on top of that, we are also participating in the Pitch Fest with East Denver, the main event organizer on the main stage. So a lot's happening, especially tonight. Please come, make sure that you come to our event and like grab our merch. I hope that you like it. On top of that, as part of the whole entire initiative, I do want to curate a more of a culture, right? Like last cycle, Berachain did a really job by gathering, grouping all the degents. And now we're actually
And
like
the baddies.
calling, and the baddies, obviously. Now that we're actually calling out to all the AI nerds. Yeah, we're building super nerds as a community. And if you're a nerd, don't feel, ashamed of being a nerd. I'm totally a nerd. I talked about AI all the time. Even like, actually like you don't know how many dates I actually like lost because I just like nonstop talking about business.
Did you use ChatGPT for advice of what not to do, what to do?
And yeah, like GPT's like, maybe you should tone down on the crypto talk. That would be your advice.
It's funny because I'm the opposite, right? When I go on dates and I'm the crypto person, AI person, and the girl is just like,
Exactly. I'm like, well, if we cannot really talk about these things, we can't really go out on a second date, right? So yes, like not really like being shameful of like being a nerd. I think like nerd is still that like mentality that makes us different, especially in AI. So, calling out all the super nerds and join our like super nerds ambassador program.
how can people do that?
Well, actually, like we're kind of like setting it for more KOLs. If you're a content creator, like start tagging us. Like applying to us, hashtagging like super nerds, and then like basically we'll just go through the criterias, and then like basically like having people to join our program. I hope that you could also like be part of that program.
Yeah.
And we'll have like exclusive, content workshops, AI workshops, and also like exclusive merge drops as well. And obviously, I hate to talk about like point system, but we are in where we are, so there will be like actually a solid point system as well, and leading to like the future like benefits and incentives.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And are you guys on other socials like Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok?
So right now, actually, we're also, as we speak, we're thinking about like building a new kind of a content series called Nerd Talk.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like TED Talk, but Nerd Talk.
Okay.
And it will be like a collection of short video contents that we're gonna capture every time we go to like different events, and then basically, like having live interviews with the solid builders in the space. And that will be like a living on YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and also like TikTok. We're also thinking about like actually building our own podcast, like talking about the more nerdy stuff, like more in-depth AI. Hopefully, like we could also like have you join us as a guest, and then like maybe a couple of other like AI nerds, so that we can all nerd out together and talk about AI.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's really cool what you guys are building. It seems like a lot of momentum, right? And really, having a go-to-market strategy, really capturing the AI thing. And wish you guys all the best.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. This has been like so much more enjoyable than I expected.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.